On a seemingly ordinary day in November 1873, the convent's routine was broken by a singular event. Sister Maria da Cruz, finding herself alone, began to hear laments as if someone were in suffering. Intrigued and a little frightened, she questioned aloud who was there, but her insistent questions received no answer. Understanding that it could be a soul in need from purgatory, she dedicated herself to the only help she could offer: prayer. For 3 months, she intensified her prayers for that unknown voice, which persisted in manifesting itself. Finally, on February 15, 1874, the identity of the soul was revealed. It was another religious sister with whom she had lived, Sister Maria Gabriela, who died on February 22, 1871, at the age of 36, and who had since been in a state of purification. Sister Maria Gabriela communicated that, by divine permission, her soul would continue to manifest for some time, initiating a communication that would last for years. In these apparitions, she offered spiritual advice and unveiled aspects of eternity, also answering questions posed by Sister Maria da Cruz, often at the request of her confessor, who instructed her to record everything in a diary. From these dialogues emerge profound reflections on the final passage and life beyond the grave. Regarding the final moment of death, it was explained that although Sister Maria Gabriela did not experience prolonged physical agony, the final instant is an intense spiritual battlefield. The demonic adversary attacks the dying with full fury, but God, to grant greater merit to souls, allows them to face this final trial. In these final combats, many souls who were dedicated to God during their lives emerge victorious, as He does not permit them to perish at this crucial moment. Those who nurtured devotion to the Blessed Virgin and constantly invoked her receive special graces and her protection in these final struggles, the same occurring for devotees of Saint Joseph, Saint Michael the Archangel, or other saints. The happiness of having intercessors with God in this painful trance becomes evident. There are also souls who depart in tranquility without experiencing this visible struggle, because God, in His inscrutable designs, orders or permits everything for the particular good of each one. Upon detaching from the body, the soul is immediately immersed in the divine presence, receiving such intense clarity that in an instant it understands its entire existence and the destiny it has merited. It is in this limpid vision that its sentence is pronounced. If the soul is considered guilty and destined for purgatory, as in the case of Sister Maria Gabriela, it feels so crushed by the weight of the faults yet to be expiated that it voluntarily throws itself into this state of purification. Only then does one truly understand the goodness of God and the terrible offense that sin represents before the Divine Majesty. Sudden death, in turn, can be both an act of divine justice and mercy. For a soul fearful of God and prepared for the encounter with Him, sudden death can be a way of sparing it the final anguish. However, God can also call souls suddenly as an act of justice. Although they are not eternally lost, the lack of the last sacraments or their hasty reception without adequate preparation can result in a significantly more painful and prolonged purgatory. There are also those who have exhausted the measure of their crimes and silenced the voice of divine grace. God removes them from the earth so they do not worsen their condemnation. In contrast, for the soul that goes directly to heaven, the union with Jesus begun on earth simply continues and deepens in eternity. Heaven is this intimate union, much deeper than the earthly one. However, few people love God as He desires, often seeking themselves under the guise of seeking God, aspiring to an illusory sanctity. Purgatory presents different levels or degrees. The so-called Great Purgatory is the place for the most guilty souls, where Sister Maria Gabriela remained for 2 years without being able to communicate her torments. In the lowest level of this Great Purgatory are those who committed serious crimes and were surprised by death without time for adequate penance, being saved by a miracle of divine mercy, often in response to the prayers of relatives or pious people. Some could not even confess, being judged lost by the world, but God in His infinite compassion granted them the necessary contrition at the last moment in view of some good deed performed. For these souls, purgatory is terrible, resembling hell, with the crucial difference that there one blesses and thanks God for salvation, whereas in hell he is cursed. There is a second purgatory, distinct from the first, where the suffering, although intense, is lesser. There reside souls who died guilty of unexpiated venial sins or mortal sins that were forgiven, but whose reparation was incomplete. It also includes negligent religious men and women, tepid priests who did not exercise their ministry with due reverence, or who did not inspire love for our Lord in the souls entrusted to them. Finally, there is the purgatory of desire, also called the atrium or vestibule of heaven. Few souls avoid this stage, as it requires an ardent desire for heaven, something rare, since many people, even pious ones, fear God and do not long for heaven with sufficient fervor. As for Protestants, by divine mercy, a certain number attain salvation, but their purgatory tends to be long and rigorous. Although they have not abused graces like many Catholics, they lack the eminent aids of the sacraments and other helps of the true religion, which prolongs their expiation. Regarding the Eucharist, in purgatory, one does not see God directly when exposed, but his presence is felt and he is believed in with a faith much more alive than the earthly one. The souls there understand what God is. The Eucharist should be a magnet drawing souls on earth ever closer, and preparation for communion requires love before, during, and after. One must love God in such a way that he finds in the heart a sweet dwelling where he can rest from the offenses he receives. Loving Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, especially for indifferent souls, comforts and consoles our Lord amidst contempt. The Blessed Virgin visits purgatory. Sister Maria Gabriela saw her for the first time on the day of the Annunciation when she moved to the second purgatory, as this vision is not granted in the great purgatory. Mary's visit is a solace. She speaks of heaven, and while she is present, the sufferings seem to diminish. Saint Joseph also visits the souls, but less frequently. Mary comes in her glorified body on her feast days and takes many souls with her to heaven. Indulgences applied to the souls in purgatory are received only as suffrage, as God permits, for divine justice reigns there, no longer the kingdom of mercy. Although free from attachment to sin, souls receive what divine justice determines. Seeing God is not possible in purgatory, as that would already be heaven. The understanding of who God is, his holiness and majesty, becomes clear to the soul detached from earthly bonds, but this direct vision is reserved for paradise. The only consolation and hope in purgatory is God. Unlike on earth, where consolations from friends can be vain if devoid of the love of Jesus, in purgatory souls are immersed in the divine will, and only God can alleviate their pains. The greatest suffering there is not the fire, but the absence of the vision of God. A continuous martyrdom that surpasses any other pain. It is an unimaginable suffering on earth, little reflected upon, even in religious communities. The fire of purgatory, though compared to earthly fire, is an instrument of God's purifying justice, making earthly fire seem sweet in comparison. A small prayer offered brings immense refreshment, like a glass of cool water to someone thirsty. Saint Michael the Archangel is seen as angels are, without a physical body. He comes to purgatory to retrieve the purified souls and lead them to heaven. The guardian angels also visit the souls, but Saint Michael is described as being of superior beauty. The soul's knowledge of earthly events is limited to what God permits, being generally restricted. Sister Maria Gabriela only knew about earthly matters, and the soul of Sister Maria da Cruz, because God allowed it for the latter's sanctification. Occasionally God revealed something to her about other people, but her habitual knowledge was limited. Some souls possess more extensive knowledge proportional to their merit. As final advice for the salvation of the soul, it was recommended to maintain an intimate union with Jesus, consulting him heart to heart before each action, like a friend always present. During the day, recollect oneself several times in God's presence. Be penetrated by that presence. Recognize one's own misery and his infinite goodness. Thank him affectionately. Speak with Jesus continually, for that is what he expects. Seek in the heart of Jesus what is needed for oneself and for others, for he will refuse nothing. Visit Jesus in the Eucharist whenever possible, sharing with him sufferings, joys, everything, as one speaks to a friend, a father, a spouse. Thank you for watching this video. Leave your like and subscribe to the Living Hope channel on YouTube. Activate notifications by clicking on the bell to receive other publications.